Hello, I'm at the European Parliament in Strasbourg, where MEPs have approved a key report on housing, with the stated aim of securing decent, sustainable and affordable housing. Just to give you an idea of the crisis in Europe, property prices jumped by 15.5% between 2021 and 2024, according to Eurostat. That obviously freezes out millions of people looking to get on the property ladder, and rental prices have continued to go up as well. Housing is a competence of member states, but there's been a push to do more at the EU level. And indeed, the Union's first ever housing commissioner was appointed in 2024. Well, for this programme, I'm joined by two MEPs who sit on the Special Committee on the Housing Crisis in the European Union. Dirk Gottink is the vice chair of that committee. He's a Dutch Christian Democrat and a member of the European People's Party here. Welcome to you.
Thank you.
And I'm also here with Ilaria Salis, a member of the Green and Left Alliance in Italy, and she's part of the left group in the European Parliament, and she's a substitute on the Housing Committee. Welcome to you as well.
Thank you.
Ilaria Salis, I'd like to start with you because your group, the Left, voted against this housing report, and you actually called it a pro-eviction report, as in it's going to lead to eviction of tenants. Why did your group take that position?
Well, as left group, we voted against this report because this report recognizes that there is a big housing crisis, and that is true because in my country, for instance, all the people who are not owners of a house, that means 25% of the whole Italian population nowadays has a problem with housing because the prices of rents are getting higher and higher. But the problem of this report is that it doesn't address the correct solution to solve this problem, because there are a lot of lacks inside this report. That is a report, in my opinion, that is written for the lobbies of a constructor, because it pushes more and more constructions, weakening the regulation about constructions, but for instance, in cities like Milan or Rome, where should we build new houses? There is no space. And on the other side, there is a lot of vacant houses. In my country, there is a very huge amount of vacant houses also inside the public and social housing. While there is as well a problem of social housing in my country, because only 3% of the whole stock of housing is public housing for social housing. While I know that in the Netherlands, there is a much higher amount of social housing. It's up to 30%, so that in Holland, for instance, 40% of the people have the right to have access to social housing.
But okay, there's a lot of points there. Let's just get Dirk Gottink to break down some of them. So this problem of too much construction, first of all, is that true?
Well, if you look at the numbers, it's simply a no-brainer. We need to build more houses. And not everywhere in the same way, but we need more houses because we don't have affordable houses for especially the middle segment and the lower segment. You have a huge problem of young people not having access to houses, not having access to financing of houses. And a lot of the issues that Ms. Saris mentions, they're in the report, supporting social housing, supporting public investments, private investments. Also, yes, integrating the construction internal market, which is at the moment still has a lot of barriers. There are quite some rules that have to do with environmental legislation that in some countries they stop building projects because they temporarily, for example, increase pollution in order to lower pollution in the longer term. You have rules about very stupid things like that are in the energy performance of buildings or in other pieces of legislation where you have a hallway that always needs to be at a certain temperature, also in winter, and it costs a huge amount of energy to keep that at that temperature, but there's no point of having a hallway at that temperature. Those are also very often national legislations. So I think, listen, Europe is not the first one to respond to this crisis. It's the member states. But Europe can help can help with simplifying rules, integrating the internal market, and providing investments.
Just to understand, perhaps for everybody, why we have these price increases, and I think you two would probably disagree on the reasons, but Ilaria Celis, one thing you've highlighted and your group has talked about a lot is speculation and also too much tourism or over-tourism. Just elaborate a little bit on that, and then we'll get Dirk's reaction, obviously.
Yes, of course. I think that before building new houses, we should recover vacant houses, because houses are made to be lived by people as first houses. This is the first point. While what happens in many towns in my country for sure, but also in other cities in Europe, many people decide not to rent their house to a family, but to put it on a short-term rental that must be regulated. And there are many good practices all over Europe, in various cities, in various regions, that put a limit to touristic short-term rental, mostly in some areas, that are the areas in which there is more request of housing.
So just to be clear, you're saying that unoccupied homes are one of the things that's driving prices up?
Of course, because all these houses are out of the market, and also in cities like Milano, where the prices are very high. In Milano, the prices are really very high, and so many people who work in the cities, teachers or nurses or people who work in the public transport, cannot afford a house in the town where they live because the prices are getting higher. And this is because many houses are left empty, and many owners prefer to rent these houses as short-term rental, and we need to put to stop this, and the public must intervene, and we need a European directive about this.
Dirk Godding, do you agree on the reasons why these prices have been going up? Is it speculation? Is it unoccupied tenancies and so on?
There's no simple answer to that question, and in Milan it is way different from Amsterdam, and in Amsterdam it's different from Bucharest. I mean, that's the beauty of this challenge now. Every locality has their own realities. In Italy, they don't have a law on short-term rentals. So every municipality has to improvise. In Amsterdam, it is heavily regulated. And we don't need a European law for that. So I sometimes I'm a bit skeptic about inventing European laws for national problems that should be solved nationally. Yeah. Besides that, I see the issue. If it's unregulated, you have a big problem, and it can affect the market. But that's the responsibility of national politics, first and foremost. Secondly, we're not here to break property rights if people own homes and own buildings that they have invested in. What we need, and that's again a responsibility of, for example, local municipalities. In some places you have an extra taxation for houses that are unoccupied, yeah, because that can be a mayor or a city council that can say, listen, that's irresponsible, we need those houses on the market. So there, I don't think Europe should get involved. Europe should get involved in sorting out the internal market for construction, for example, helping young people get access to credit for banks, because the capital requirements are very, very defensive, and they make it very difficult for young people to get reasonable mortgages. And, for example, relax the state aid rules. Allow member states to invest also in segments of the market that are a bit higher, the middle segment, the middle income segments, that is not allowed at the moment.
Ilaria Celis, so on this point about taxation, for example, taxing unoccupied homes and stuff, is there actual evidence that extra money is helping to solve the crisis already?
Well, I think that we should there should be intervention against vacant houses, and that can be done in two ways. One way, and both ways are already ongoing in some countries, in some cities in Europe. What we should do here is to put a common regulation that can guarantee everybody inside the EU to have the same rights. And the right to housing is the fundamental right to guarantee other rights like health, like instruction, protection, like worker rights. So this is it's very important. This is the basis. Of course, if there is an extra taxation on vacant houses, this money can be used, for instance, for a big public and social housing project, and this can solve, in my country, for sure, can solve the problems about housing that concerns many people, and mostly young people, and the people who work but don't earn enough to afford a house in the city where they live.
Just briefly, Gotting, because we don't have much time, but so this idea of housing as a fundamental right, do you agree with that? But that it should be the state and local municipal level, not the EU level, in line with subsidiarity principle?
Well, you know, it's clear that without a house, there's no human dignity, right? But I cannot live in a fundamental right. So, and the question is not whether this is very important for people. Everyone sees that this is very important for people. The question is, how do we make it happen? How do we build more houses? How do we solve some of the structural issues on a European level? And then how do we also ask member states to sort out their stuff? To tell, for example, when you talk about these fiscal measures, okay, do it. If you get a majority for it in a municipal council or national parliament, I don't mind. I don't think it's Europe's area to intervene there. So for me, the right, if a person has a right then to go to a judge to ask for a house and we still don't have houses, that's also only going to drive up the prices. So for me, that's not the debate we should have. It's not about whether it's a fundamental right or not. It's about whether the market for construction functions, whether we create public and private investments that helps to build these houses, and that in the end we provide more housing for young people and for middle income groups.
So it's about practical solutions.
Exactly.
We'll have to stop there. Thank you so much to both of you, Laria Salis and Gotting, for this debate about the housing crisis in the EU. Thanks for watching us here on Talking Europe.